All right, guys. Well, welcome back to Boots Come in Pairs. We have another special guest this week, Jerremy Wiker, longtime friend, high school ball, just really good baseball mind. Unfortunately, Cardinals fan, which we're going to get into a lot today. But this is why me and Ryan kind of started doing this podcast. Was we just wanted to connect with, good baseball guys and just have good conversation. And Jerremy is definitely that. So yeah, we are very happy to have Jerremy with us tonight.
Yeah, really appreciate the invite. Love talking baseball. Thinking back, some of the best memories we had are talking about baseball. Mm-hmm. As you know, it's one of the things I really enjoy. Shout out to our high school coach for talking about how all to do is talk about ball, I guess. So that's one of the things I've always enjoyed. And with the way that you guys think about the game, we see the game in a different way. But we all have that true, I guess, ball player ideal in our mind, and it matches a lot. It's that tough guy that goes after it, gets the job done, and we may not always agree on who the all-stars are, but we know the guys that play the game the right way, and that's something I've always enjoyed, and was one of the fun things about playing with you guys is you guys were that way, and it was a lot of fun. So definitely excited, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, the parody is you want people that don't always agree with you. So if there's a little more incentive for me to watch the Cardinals, kind of choke last year, that was more fun. Just creates parody.
And honestly, it adds that other element too, and it gives you more things to talk about. Like, dude, we've literally been having these conversations for like half of our lives. Like, you were a 15-year-old in honors geometry, and I was a 16-year-old in honors geometry, and that's how we kind of met. And you played ball with Brandon at least freshman year, and then halfway through the year you got brought up and you were playing with me on the sophomore team. So we've been through a lot together. We've talked a lot of baseball, whether it was in class or not in class. Like, I think Coach Wyman probably got a little sick and tired of us talking about baseball in the corner rather than doing our homework. But I mean, it was a blast, my friend. It's great to have you on, and looking forward to where the conversation goes tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, going back down memory lane a little bit, remember being at Portillo's talking about the World Series coming up, and it was just one of those things. We went and watched a high school football game. We turned it right to baseball. So going back to fantasy drafts in your guys' basement and just discussing, some of those guys. It was a slog, but just talking about the game is amazing. So,
you know what? A group of people who shall remain nameless, they ruined the in-person draft. I really much looked forward to those a lot, and it was kind of ruined by three members who are not in the league anymore. But yeah, I mean, those are good times as well.
You know what? You can do football in person. I feel like people have the brain capacity for it, but 27 rounds of a fantasy baseball.
Oh my gosh, it's a lot of players.
Especially when someone has to enter in all the results afterwards. Yeah, but yeah,
that was fun though.
Yeah, yes, very deep rooted. I said a lot of stuff. But we're gonna dig into the Cardinals tonight a little bit because we're tired of talking about the Cubs and what they're not doing. Because I guess they're waiting on Cody Bellinger. I don't know. Our group chat was a little frustrated this week with the lack of execution in the free agent market. But at least the Cardinals are making moves. I don't know if they're the right moves, but they're doing something.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the thing that I find interesting is you're waiting for moves to happen. And one of the things that I personally would take a little bit of heat on here, and the Cardinals taking heat on, is they made a lot of moves right off the bat. Yeah. Everyone's like, why are you rushing to sign Lance Lynn or going after Gibson or whoever it may be? Why are you rushing into these moves? And as a Cardinal fan, you're a little frustrated. Mozeliak starts talking about things. Oh, they wanted to be Cardinals, so we signed them right away. Okay, but you guys mentioned is go after good right away, or can we get better later on, or what are our upgrades here? So in the beginning, I was glad they were signing starters, but I'm worried they might be done, or at least wait until the big name splash. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized this isn't the first set of moves that they made to add pitching. And we know the biggest problem with the Cardinals last year was their pitching. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, you talk about it finishing the bottom of the barrel, but I think one of the things that happened, and as a Cardinals fan, I assumed it was going to be this way, just make it to the All-Star break at 500. They'll add pitching. They always do that. Whether it's they go out and get Quintana or when they got Lester. They added a couple of guys that went and won games down the stretch and made the playoffs. And all's right when the Cardinals are in the playoffs as a St. Louis fan, because they seem to make a little bit of noise. And the season starts off, and they've never gotten better. Mm-hmm. And anytime you start off a season and your starters are going 2 or 3 innings, it's going to wear into a bullpen. And the bullpen's not great, but they had a couple of arms in it, but they were done by the All-Star break, and they abandoned ship. But you look, they brought in a couple of younger guys coming in, and they traded off some talent then, and deal with the Rangers, brought in a couple of guys, and it's a little bit more than just this last couple of months. It's an accumulation of the last couple of months, not just the last couple of weeks. So I think they did a little bit of reloading. But one of the things I want to bounce off you guys is you seem very excited about the Cubs, but what do they really have on paper right now that's that good? I was kind of going through the lineup, and with the exception of maybe your guys' favorite left fielder and the middle infield, I think the Cardinals are a better team on paper. And collectively, you could even argue that Nootbaar is equivalent in left field, and you're talking up the middle. You got Mason Wynn, who's an unbelievable prospect. Yeah, Horner at second base, but is it really that much more than a combination of Gorham and Edmund? Like, what do you guys see in the Cubs that's that dominant, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. I am with you 100%, and it's like not having Bellinger, or at least that version of Bellinger that we saw last year, like that is scary to me. Like not having him around. And then, aside from, they kind of ignited in the summer a little bit, and the right combination of players did well. They didn't really have the pitching, and that's kind of what ultimately bit them in the end. But honestly, like, you're 100% right. Like, that's what kind of why, like, as Cubs fans, we're pushing for them to sign Bellinger. We're pushing for them to sign Matt Chapman. We're pushing for them to sign another bat. Because looking at the Cardinals roster on paper, and you're absolutely right when it comes to their pitching too. Like the pitching has always been the strength of the Cardinals. They've always had the offense that got it done. They were that gritty team, the Cardinal way, all that stuff. But like the pitching has always been what's been super solid. And you look at the roster last year. Aside from you get half a season of really good pitching from Montgomery, trade him away. Steven Matz had bright spots, but every single other pitcher in that rotation got shelled. Like Wainwright should have retired. We know he was going for win number 200, but he should have retired. Michaelis got slammed every time out. They had nothing after they got rid of Montgomery, and then that taxes your incredible bullpen that you've had. Like you have guys like Gallegos, who are really good pitchers, who has close to a 5 ERA, probably because he was overworked. Really, the only guys who performed really well were Ryan Helsley, who's a great pitcher, and then you had Hicks for a little bit. But everyone else, you're kind of betting on younger guys like Matt Liberatore, kind of still waiting to see who he's going to be, former top prospect. So when the strength of your team over the years has been your pitching, and the pitching's not there, it just taxes your lineup even more. They had a lot of young guys who were inserted into the lineup, like Jordan Walker. This is Nolan Gorman's first year. Guys like that, and who are very promising. You got an outstanding utility player in Brendan Donovan. Like, you have really good pieces. Mason Wynn, like you mentioned, is super exciting. You sign arguably the most intriguing offseason catcher at the time in Wilson Contreras, considering like stealing him from the Cubs. It's like, whoa. And then halfway through that season, they're like, is he even going to catch for us? Should we trade him after signing this big deal? So it was like turmoil, and it's like, man, this is just not the Cardinals we're used to seeing.
Well, to Jeremy's point, though, you're right. What are the Cubs doing to like excite? I think last year the reason why we were excited is because they were actually playing good baseball for once, and like it's like, okay, cool. But you're right, they're a worse team right now. If you field them today, even if you added, okay, let's say they sign Bellinger tomorrow, then you're the same team that you were last year, and we've already established that, like, hey, we want to get above that, right? So you're 100% right, Jeremy. There's nothing with this current roster the way it is on paper today. And I was looking over it today, like with the moves they've added with pitching, just in their pitching staff. You got Sonny Gray, and then you have Gibson, and then you added, I don't like Lance Lynn, but you've at least filled out your rotation.
150 to 200 innings, though. It's hard to argue with that. Mm-hmm. And you're giving up a ton of hits, but you're giving up more hits because you're in the game a long time. Mm-hmm. And one of the things about Lynn that I always appreciated, even watching him play with the bad White Sox team, that guy took his lumps, but when he had a lead, he kept his team in the game. When he gave up 5 runs, it's because most of the time it was a 4 or 5 run game. He really seemed to pitch to the situation. I'm not saying he's an all-star, but if you could take 200 innings off the board and give one of those young guys a chance to maybe develop until the all-star breaker, or work as a swing starter in there. Liberatore, see what happens with him. Maybe you take the pressure off him because Len's taken up, or they're splitting starts. Maybe you take a couple innings off of him, and maybe you go Len 4 innings and go Liberatore for 3, and you piggyback some starts to get these guys lengthened out. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but anytime you can add that many innings right off the bat, it's a huge benefit to a team that was overworked like they were last year.
And that's a good point on the bullpens, too. Everyone likes to point, if the bullpens get blown up, they're obviously bad pitchers, right? And a lot of times is, overwork. They pitch too many innings, they're out of gas, and by the time you get to the postseason, they're just too taxed to really hold it together. We've seen that with guys all the time. When they get in the 70, 80 inning range from the bullpen, they just are less effective. So you want those fresh arms, you want guys, you're right. Lance Lynn serves a purpose. He may not be your game 1 starter of the postseason anymore.
I hope not.
But he serves, we were talking about Marco Gonzalez last week, and how, because who did the Yankees at him? Or who had him?
The Braves.
The Braves.
And it's what did the Braves need him for? But it's you're right. It's that inning eating, keeping your guys fresh, and he'll produce 150 plus innings, and that's just what you need sometimes. And the Cardinals, yeah, you're right. They could have used that a little bit more last year. Just a guy who can take the ball and be like, all right, I'll get you at least 5. I don't have my best stuff today, but I'll get you 5, and that'll at least push you along, not mess up the rotation for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, and it's not easy to argue that all 3 of those guys have that reputation where they could give you 150 to 200 innings. Kyle Gibson is probably one of the most confusing guys to me in baseball. You see the guy do incredibly well. He's more of a sinker ball pitcher, and then he just has games where he goes 2 innings and gives up 8 runs. And it's this guy's way better than this. You've seen him perform, but he's going to give you innings. Sonny Gray is potential ace status. He pitches really well in the Central. Remember his time with the Reds? I mean, he was excellent. I mean, all-star level, like mint prime athletics level Gray when he was pitching for Cincinnati. So that to me is a really, really intriguing, good signing. The other 2 guys will get you innings, and hopefully you can just get some performances out of some other people to round out that rotation. And then maybe that'll elevate the bullpen and elevate the offense as well. Because, I mean, you even look at the superstars. You look at Arenado and you look at Goldschmidt. Goldschmidt goes from an MVP season to not playing his best baseball. The losing probably wore on him a little bit. Arenado had a nice season, but not an Arenado season. It was the first time in his career that he didn't win the Gold Glove, which is crazy to think about. But Brian Hayes had an elite defensive year at third base. So, I don't know. I just think it wears on the stars a little bit as well. And honestly, that's probably the best corner infield in the game, I think, when they're playing their best baseball. So, I mean, even that can wear on them.
I would still take that corner. I would still take Arenado and Goldschmidt. Even
oh my gosh,
they had last year.
100%.
100%. Yeah, that's a way to build a roster.
And I think one of the things about that too is it was an emotional ride the past couple of years for just the Cardinals in general. Molina, Wainwright, Pujols, I mean, that's the heart and soul of an organization for 20 years. And the fans are excited. The players are excited. I hate to put it this way, but there's a sense of mortality there for, looking at that happen personally for me. But also, you'd imagine that Arenado and guys that are aging, getting a little bit older, seeing the young guys come up, and Goldschmidt, who's even older than that, watching these guys kind of right off into the sunset. When things started going badly, those guys, they kind of hit onto that, and Pujols had an unbelievable stretch. But when that happens, what are you looking at? When it's time for you to save the day after that emotional ride, do you have enough to kick it in there? And all of a sudden, all those guys in the locker room that you might have leaned on in a time of issue are gone. And, Molina is the backbone. This is something I find really interesting. You talk about the signing for the Cardinals, Contreras, and what happened there. But the Cardinals pitching staff has always been good. They're always prepared. Well, is that the pitching coach? Is that the manager? Or is that Yadier Molina every night in and night out?
I would think Yadi for sure.
Yeah, and then Contreras comes in. You hear these rumors about, he wasn't preparing right in that. And maybe he didn't prepare the same way Molina did, but I don't think Contreras was taking nights off. I think he took a lot of flack for a struggling staff. And then when he was taking advantage of, hey, I'm the new guy here, put it on me, let's get better. And then nobody got better. Now everybody's down on him. And I don't think he knew how to come out of it. He started hey, I'll make this better. And his thing, that he just plays harder. He's unbelievably hard-playing player, wears his emotion on his sleeve. But when that happened and things were going bad, the whole team started nosedive a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And there was really nobody to pull him out of it. I mean, what leadership's in that room? Yeah, you got Arenado and Goldschmidt, but those guys both lead by example. And the example that's out there was kind of down a little bit. Now you bring back a guy like Descalso, who's always been part of the Cardinal way. He's a positive guy. He was never a superstar, but he always chipped in off the bench. He never took things personal. Yadier Molina's back in that clubhouse. You know, I don't know what he's going to do. He wants to learn a little bit of everything, but he's managing down in the Dominican leagues or in Puerto Rico or somewhere now. And he's learning the game again from a different point of view. I think just having those guys around, you're going to have leadership, and you got that network back in place that made the Cardinals so great for so long, because now you can plug in pieces because you have a framework. Mm-hmm. And I think Contreras is only going to get better. He can definitely swing it. He's not bad defensively. He's got the tools. I think he just got a little lost trying to do too much because he wanted to fill those shoes for Yadier Molina, and I don't know if anybody does that.
No, that is actually, I don't think I've ever heard anyone put it that way. And it's like, you just look at but Wilson's stat line, like all of his offensive numbers were right on par with his career numbers. Like he still hit 20 homers. He hit 20 plus doubles. He almost drove in 70 runs. He caught about 100 games behind the plate. I like your take on just him shouldering the blame for, I mean, I would say borderline atrocious pitching. Like, we'll call it what it was. It was atrocious. So, but he's that kind of guy. Like, even as the Cubs, or as a player on the Cubs, member of the Cubs organization, he's a leader. He always has been a leader. He's the first one to step up and say, hey, like, this is my bad. I'm going to make it right. I'm going to play harder. I'm going to do better. And yeah, I mean, I just think that kind of came through in his stat line. And I think this year, with upgrades to the staff, he's going to look a lot better and come into a better light among the fans. I hope that Cardinal fans really, maybe they already do see this, but I hope they get to see the Contreras that we got to see in Chicago. Just a guy who leaves it all on the field, who plays as hard as he can. Because again, that guy is such a special player. I mean, he's pretty much a 5-tool player in my opinion. I think he could do anything on the diamond well if he puts his mind to it and he feels like he can do that.
Yeah, the biggest knock I ever had on him, and I've said it before, is he gets a little wrapped up in things. And I played the same way. I played with my emotions on my sleeve, but it was just because I wanted to win so bad. Like I couldn't, and when I couldn't do it for someone else, I just wanted to. Like, and I had my fair share of excitement and blow-ups, as you guys know, and are laughing. But sometimes when you do that, you take your teammates out of the game, or you hurt a pitcher. And for all those times where even like myself included, and not playing at that high of a level, but I know that when I was staying calm through all the things, pitchers would lean on me and we'd get through tough situations. But if I blew up, the guy that was across me very rarely was able to pull out of that nosedive. And just seeing that happen, it was kind of personal to me, because you see a guy that wants nothing but to win. And fans are starting to turn on him a little bit because he's coming out of the gate slow. Well, what are you going to do? I mean, Wainwright, I love Adam Wainwright, one of my favorite players of the Cardinal. You go out there and throw 3 innings, give up 4 home runs. Nobody can help you. No. I mean, what are you going to do?
And that's the catch. I think that's why the Cubs may have decided to move on. It's because they probably didn't see he's got an elite arm, and just maybe he doesn't have, like, yeah, he wants to be a leader. He wants to try hard, but maybe he was just too erratic behind the plate. And we'll see. You got to give him some time. Again, he's not going to all of a sudden come into St. Louis and be Yachty right away. They can morph him into that guy. But it'll just be, can he contain it? Can he control it? Can he command a pitching staff when they are pitching well? And that'll be the difference. But you kind of hit on it a little bit. That was kind of my next question, was going to be the Cardinal way. We've heard it for so long. The Cardinal way. They kind of just have this knack for doing everything right. They know when to cut players. They know when to, move on, go a different direction. We saw it with Pujols, Alan Craig, David
Matt
Freese,
Carpenter.
Matt Carpenter.
Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah, Tyler O'Neill.
You can just go down the list. But it seems like you're kind of teetering on, and they're trying to, it sounds like they're trying to reinvent it. They're trying to bring all these guys back in. But you're teetering on potentially, if this Wilson Contreras thing goes south last year and they just disown him as the catcher and get rid of him, that just messes up the cycle. And then you're in this bad cycle of constantly replacing. Do you think they're more on track to get back to that? Or do you think they're one wrong move away from kind of... Because, let's just say they come out of the gates this year. These 5 pitchers they signed, maybe Sonny Gray pitches well, and the rest are just continuing this hit parade on the mound. what happens, right? Do you go back to the create a player mode where you're just making pitchers and you're 5 years away from success again? But like the Cardinals don't do that. They don't rebuild. They just retool. And you're right. Get to the playoffs. Let's see what happens. Get to the playoffs. Maybe win the World Series. Are they teetering on that, or you think they're building? Like it sounds like they're building for the next wave of Cardinal way players.
I think more the Cardinal way is, and when you say that, a lot of people, I even say it tongue in cheek, right? Yeah. I mean, Cardinal fans are a unique brand of baseball fans. They're very smart. They know the game. They love baseball. Oh, yeah. But a lot of them can be extremely obnoxious. And some of them obnoxious to me is sometimes Cardinal fans think they're better than everybody else because the franchise has made good decisions. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's not, I mean, you're not the one making that decision. You just may trust them spending their own money a little more than most fans trust owners spending their money. And it's because that they've made the right decision time after time. But I remember when Lance Lynn got traded, a lot of Cardinals fans, I can't believe you let such a star go. And then all of a sudden when he's gone, they're like, it was such a good idea to let him go because we have, whoever it maybe fills his shoes, right? And at the time, you see guys, I go way back to like Jared Weaver. You bring a guy in, you retool him a little bit, and he goes and gets out there, goes after it for a year or two, and then he retires kind of in a positive light. But I think a lot of that's by the framework that's in place. And I think by bringing back the right guys on the bench and in that system, I think it really, really helps the team as a whole. So as long as you get the right caliber person that wants to learn and develop, I think you're always going to have that competitive team. You're always going to be able to stay around 500, and you take more bites at the apple. But as far as putting together a powerhouse, I think the prospects that the Cardinals have, they better hit on, because the last 3-4 guys that they've brought up that were supposed to be absolute studs have not necessarily panned out. And a couple of guys that they got rid of seem to have done pretty well. Adolis Garcia, Randy Alcantara.
Arozarena.
Got rid of Arozarena. Yes, I'm sorry. Arozarena.
Yeah.
And that was also an interesting thing during the World Series. They basically were saying like, "Hey Cardinals, here's your team." I feel like Adolis Garcia was like 3 prospects out. Like he wasn't a major league ready prospect when they had him.
But Brandon, like if you look at like Arozarena and Garcia were both performing well. Yeah. They were performing really well, right. And the Cardinals just made the decision to go a different route.
But
they weren't like the scrub on the end of the bench. Like they were like, hey, you're good, but you're not going to fit right now, so we're going to trade you for parts. I mean, some of these guys that Jeremy's probably referring to, I mean, you're betting on Nolan Gorman, you're betting on Jordan Walker, like these 2 guys, and then Mason Wynn also. But I mean, I just looked at the top 100 prospects as of now. I mean, like Wynn, and they got this young pitcher. What is his name? His name is Tink Hence. Yep. He's like an Arkansas high school prep prospect, high school draftee, throws gas, but that's all they have in the top 100. But last year you had Walker, you had Gorman, you like Carlson. Dylan Carlson didn't play that well. Like Tyler O'Neill was a 2-time Gold Glover, and he was a really good player last year. They decided to ultimately part ways with him. They got a couple good, decent, like they got a pitcher and a position player in return for him. So, yeah, I mean, you're betting on Carlson, you're betting on Walker, you're betting on Wynn, and you're betting on Gorman. Those need to be your guys who complement Goldie and Arenado. Like, that's how it's going to work. And then Nootbaar's an excellent player as well. I'm intrigued by him. He had a really nice World Baseball Classic. That's kind of how he got in the map in front of a world audience. He had a pretty nice first full season in the majors, so they have a lot of talent, but you're absolutely right. Like, they have to hit. These guys have to perform. Carlson was hurt last year. Carlson's a wonderful player.
Yeah.
But he's got to stay healthy. Switch hitter. He's got to stay healthy, though, and he's got to bring it. He has to. They have to do that.
But you're also, too, not used to seeing, like, this guy was a former Cardinal, and now he's having success over here. Usually it's like, guys from other teams are like the Yankees prospects that have success, and when the Cardinals let somebody go, it's like usually it's like the Patriot thing, like they're done when they leave the Cardinals.
Yeah, they suck. But like they only were good in a Cardinal uniform, and that's it.
Essentially, yeah, you have 2 of the best teams in the AL have half the Cardinal players.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah. That's just,
and Jordan Hicks even. I mean, the team was saying they had to get rid of a guy, but you guys, everybody, Jordan Hicks. Montgomery was a Cardinal. They got rid of Montgomery. You look at these guys. Those were all on the Cardinals roster, and those weren't developed by the Cardinals. But you look at that group of guys that was in there, and I if you ask me, and we talked about this, Brandon, the center fielder that's missing, Harrison Bader, I thought he was going to be the Cardinals center fielder for life. I thought we were going to watch him diving around and stealing bases and just being that just exciting baseball, Brandon baseball all the time. And he can't stay on the field. And then when he gets out there, he struggles hitting. And exciting guy, plays the game the right way, but that's the guy the Cardinals bet on. And they missed on that one a little bit. You watch the two guys out there. Are they a better team if they stay in St. Louis? I don't know, but they sure are producing where they're at. So, you talk about missed on some guys, but I think that's where those guys were really good. And I'm talking about Rosarena, talking about Garcia, even Bader. Like, they had their place. But Mason Wynn is special. I don't know if you guys have seen highlighghts. His arm cannon alone. Like, people were joking, like, oh, why would someone write like this? Well, because it's the futures game, and he wanted people to talk about him. So he threw like 100+ miles an hour across the diamond.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got great range. He's one of those guys who just floats across the infield, soft hands. If he hits 230 and slugs like 550, he's going to be an unbelievable tool in the big leagues. And he's got a good stroke. He's that real wiry, kind of rangy body that gets a lot of drive on the ball. Whether or not he's going to hit home runs, I don't know. But if he slaps some doubles, that's a dang good shortstop there. And that arm is elite. It might be the best arm on the infield in the league right now, because it's just so, it was young too, but it's tops. And the thing about that is, if you hit on that guy, a lot of those whispers of missing elsewhere go away, because Duvar come out of nowhere. He wasn't a top prospect, but he plays really hard. He ignites the lineup. Tommy Edman the same way, real responsible ball player, playing all over the place. But you talk about the Cardinal way, and that's kind of those guys, right? The creative player guy, the 20 wars, 10 war guys over 5 years, 20 war over their career. But you look at Donovan, Gorman, Walker even, there's some redundancy there. And I think the Cardinals could make a move and get something out of it. They got a couple of guys that I think not a whole lot of people talk about. And I kind of come across these guys, just look and see, what do the Cardinals actually have, right? Well, a couple of those trades they made towards the end of the year, they picked up Cooper Herpy, which I think I'm saying the name right, but he's kind of a really good stuff guy, hasn't really figured it out. But if that's the guy that's kind of in that mix to be a developed player, or kind of take a bite at the apple or see if he fills out a starter, now all of a sudden you're looking at 5 or 6 starters. You're going to need some depth there, but now you're trying out to have your 5 starters. And then Roby, I think, is the other one. Tegan Roby, I think, was also picked up in that trade. He was hurt when they got him, but he's another guy that was projected. I think he was a top 100 prospect in the league. They pick him up as a throw-in on a deal at the trade deadline. These are guys that come in, or kind of resurrection projects, but if you're going to lean on what happened in the past and develop these guys as maybe kind of erratic ground ball pitchers, sinker ball guys that go after hitters, get them out early, keep guys off the bases, I think there's a lot to be said there. And one thing, and I think this is underrated when it comes to talking about Cardinal baseball, is they get a lot of starters to get rhythm. So if you get on a good streak and you start playing well and the guys are picking the ball around you, they get better and they work a little faster. Well, now with the pitch clock, the whole game's going that way. So guys that may have struggled over the past couple of years are starting to get a little better. Now all of a sudden you're in a system, and like a good shooter, you're in rhythm. And if you can stay in rhythm and get the ball back and start taking it to the hitters, these hitters can't break things up like they used to. And it's kind of a snowball effect. If you're going up there and sitting down right away, it's hard to break through that. So you can get on streaks with some of these guys and roll off 5, 10 wins in a row. Or you win 4 or 5 series in a row. Now all of a sudden, Central, where around 500 is probably going to win it, you're in that conversation at the end of the year. You get 1 or 2 guys that get hot, Arenado or Goldschmidt. You win a couple more series down the stretch, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point, because the Central is there for the taking. The Brewers
it's wide open.
The Brewers are not better. The Cubs, you're right, are not better. So, and I hate to say it, but Cardinals are one or two, productive players away from really being that. And if they have the shortstop of the future, I think because Tommy Edman was a little banged up last year, and I think if you can lock him in at second base, it's the same thing as we were talking as like Nico Horner. He was not able to stay healthy as a shortstop because it's so demanding. But you have this young kid come up and he can be the shortstop, and you lock him in. Then all of a sudden you're really good up the middle too, and you have a bunch of ground ball contact pitchers. Those hits become outs, right? And then you're just manufacturing innings, and you're right. You're getting rolling and doing all that stuff. I think keeping Tommy Edman healthy is really important for their lineup because it allows guys like Arenado and Goldschmidt to drive him in. He steals a lot of bases when he's healthy. He did not last year because he was just banged up and what he can see on the field. But you're also asking a lot out of him to be a lot of different things when you don't have a shortstop spot locked.
Well, Donovan's the same way. I would say that Donovan and Edman are very similar in that they play a lot of different positions. The plus to Edman is that he can play outfield and he does have the speed to steal bases, but Donovan's a really like grinder type guy. He also wasn't really healthy the entire year. So, I mean, if you have those two super utility players kind of plugging them in where they need to be plugged in, and Wynn can really make a step forward and be the shortstop that they need, they're a dangerous team. And you get, again, like Brandon mentioned, like getting all these ground balls and hitting them right into your defense. Your defense is a vacuum. Goldschmidt's a former Gold Glover. Arenado's a perennial Gold Glover. Like, you have Gold Glove caliber defense. Tommy Edman's a Gold Glover. Like, you got Gold Gloves all around the diamond, and yeah, I mean, they all of a sudden become very intriguing.
This seems like a move they would make if Wynn is not ready. Let's just say he's not ready. Brandon Crawford's available.
Dude, oh my gosh.
Does that just make too much sense? Like,
it does.
Yeah.
Here's the thing about that, though, and Brent Crawford's one of my favorite shortstops. I love that guy.
Yeah.
The way he plays the game, his routine in the offseason or his routine in batting practice is a sight to see. If you can look it up on YouTube, bouncing balls through his legs, picking balls out the glove on, like, talk about hands. That guy's the definition. But I started to say this earlier and got on a sidetrack and a tangent about Cardinal fans. But I was talking about the redundancy. And you look at the Cardinals and you talk about the Cardinal way, right? You mentioned Gorman. You mentioned Donovan. Those guys are the same position, the same basic guy. But what do you value more? Do you value the power of Gorman, right? Or the on-base kind of tenacity of Donovan? They both play the same positions. They're both plus defenders. But, like, what's more important to you? Or do you say Edman, who I think is going to pencil in at center field right now, is where it's looking like he's going to play, instead of second base? Or do you put him at second base and trade one of the other two? I honestly don't know. And if you look at their stats, I don't know what I value more in that lineup. Because with that redundancy, you could trade it. And I think you could trade both of them or one of them. And, like, Luzardo's out there. That's a guy that's a big name you could go after and try and get. I think the Yankees need help up the middle. There's a lot of talent on that team. They got odd man out in the outfield. Like,
you could get Gleyber Torres. Because Volpe's their guy. I mean, you could trade for Gleyber Torres. That could be interesting.
Gleyber Torres doesn't excite me as much as getting a veteran like that to teach your young guy how to play, especially a Gold Glove pro like Brandon, who's won World Series. Like, that just seems like a 1-year transition where you could also be competitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Descalso's no slouch when it comes to defense, as far as, like, proper defense. And one of the biggest things that people don't realize with the Cardinals, every talk about Ron Washington being a defensive guru.
Yep.
Jose Oquendo, the secret weapon, that guy develops defensive players. You were joking about bad left fielders. He had Chris Duncan playing the outfield at a basic level. Like, that's impressive, just to have that guy out there without hurting himself or hurting someone else.
Sounds like Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah.
Minus
Speaking of which. Yeah. Well, the White Sox are a possible trade candidate too because, who's available? They got a couple pitchers available. I had it written down. I can't find it.
Dylan Cease is available.
Sorry,
Kopech's
Dylan Cease.
And,
but you could put a deal together and really wow fans. Like, I mean, Carlson as a White Sox starter, you could really say, "Oh, this is a prospect, switch hitting guy, a lot of power, just need to change the scenery." You could sell some tickets for that. And pick up, like, not that I want to see these guys go, but you send Carlson and Gorman. Those are two top guys. Mm-hmm. You get a pitcher back and maybe, a defensive outfit or defensive infielder somewhere. The Cardinals really had some redundancy there. Now you picked up two pitchers. Everybody bumps down a row, and I think both teams get better.
Mm-hmm.
That's good comp. You brought up the White Sox, and their problem seems to be, like, they have all this talent, but they don't actually produce, like, good fielders out of any of them. They're like, oh yeah, plus bat, but, like, can't do it in the field. I think that is a organizational, cultural thing that they're lacking, because we've mentioned that with John, and he's like, yeah, they have no defense at all, and but you don't really worry about that when your guys come up, right? Because you're like, we know they're going to be good there. They'll fill in. They'll do the job. It'll be more, do they fit the overall lineup design, and, like, are we getting enough power? Which that's what it kind of seems like they're lacking. Besides Arenado and Goldschmidt, the rest of their lineup isn't really producing that power.
Right. There's one guy in the minors, though, that I found someone told me about coming out of Springfield. His name is Moises Gomez. You guys have probably not heard of him unless you looked like in the Cardinals organization. He come from the Rays, and he was the top exit velocity guy for the Rays. And you watch this guy, and I'm not one for hot takes, but my hot take would be, if this guy can continue to quiet his swing a little bit, he started with a big leg kick, and I don't claim to be a professional hitting coach, but he had a lot of moving parts and got a lot of big contact. I've watched his swing over the past couple of years slow down a little bit, move to a little bit of a slide step. He got real quick with his hands, and he's hitting some absolute tanks. I mean, I was watching this guy, and he's going right center to left center. He's not really pulling the ball, but when he's pulling the ball, he's hitting about 3 feet off the ground, 500 miles an hour, which tells me he's staying on all the breaking pitches. And when he's getting something that's throwing him off, he's just keeping his hands in the zone and ripping it. This guy is like, he looks like Willie Mopena, but he actually comes up as a center fielder. He can move a little bit. And I'm thinking like,
creative player.
He's probably not Nelly Cruz, but when he hits a home run, he does this airplane thing. And I'm thinking there's going to be some planes flying. You guys are like, where did this guy come from?
Moises Gomez.
Moises Alou and Carlos Gomez had a baby.
Yep. I'm telling you, that's the creative player.
It is. This is the auto-generated name. Let me just get as many.
If he were left-handed, he'd be a top 100 prospect, and people would be talking about him the way that they talk about, Schwarber.
Schwarber, yeah.
He doesn't walk at Jerremy, that rate, but his plate coverage is huge.
There is no way this dude is 25. He looks like he's about 35.
I didn't take that in effect. Dominican years, but this guy mashes.
He looks like a man.
Jordan Walker also doesn't look like he's 19. So
yes,
he's 35 too. So
I like Jordan. I really like Jordan Walker. He seems like
I think Jordan Walker. He's got a lot of tools. Yeah. And like I said before, and I don't want to bring up Mason Wynn again. He could be an absolute flop. But when you talk tools, Mason Wynn's got him, and he's the guy that jumps off the paper at me above the other. I think Gorin. I think he's got a lot more of the bat, but it just hasn't shown yet. And I think you will see it. But redundancy at that position, they made a couple trades last year in a trade. They got that Thomas Sagassi, who is a middle infielder, kind of on par with that, plays second, short, a little bit of third. And they also got Buddy Kennedy, who is another guy I'm kind of excited about. He's a Dustin Pedroia type guy. Go out there and get after it, hustle hard. Nobody's going to work harder than me. The name that was kind of thrown around a little bit about both these guys is they mentioned the name for Buddy Kennedy, especially Michael Young. And they said that because he's this thick, kind of doubles hitting, going to hit some home runs, plays all around the diamond, hard-nosed guy, not going to say a whole lot, going to be a rock in the locker room, and he's going to be above average at whatever position he plays, and he's going to barrel things up. Whether that works out for him in St. Louis, I don't know. But when you got that type of redundancy up the middle with guys that actually hit, you got some trade chips.
See, and this is why this makes me sad, because I wanted to hear you say more of like, I don't know what's coming next. We don't know what's down the pipe. But when you keep stacking these names, these prospects, you can say all these names. It doesn't really mean anything. But what you're doing is you're creating opportunity. You're creating the space to have more people come up. And when you want that R word, redundancy, is a good thing when you're looking to add other pieces. Because it's like, instead of like, gosh, I don't even know what we have. Because that's where the Cubs ended up. They traded everything away. And then all of a sudden, we're losing all our superstars and we have nothing. So we got to rebuild that farm system. But, I mean, your lineup is pretty set. And you're talking about, we still have 6-7 deep that we could be going. And it's just, that's a healthy organization. And that's discouraging.
Yes.
That's like, oh, okay, they're going to.
But here's the thing, though. I talk about these guys, and Gomez is not a top prospect. That's a guy that I like because he's a Miguel Sano, big guy that's going to hack. He's going to swing away. I don't know for a fact, but I think they protect him Rule 5, so he's got to be on the roster. Okay. So we're going to know in spring training right away if this guy can play. Right. But if you got a guy hitting the long ball like that coming off the bench, now all of a sudden, all these utility guys, you got a guy that, now, who's going to play second base? You're playing 5 innings. We get runners on base. Gomez is going to go take a swing at it, and he hits one every 5 at bats. Hey, you get a home run, they go put another Gold Glove caliber utility guy behind him, and you're no worse for the wear. You get guys playing all the time. You get a little bit of a rhythm. These guys are staying in the game. You got a happy locker room. I think it's interesting. I think there's a lot to be said there. One of the names I kind of looked up on the Cardinals website, see who's high there for Cardinals fans, and this Gordon Graceffo out of Villanova was a top draft pick for him. He's a real methodical type pitcher, throws a lot of strikes, has got 4 pitches, and he's working on developing a 5th. Not going to blow anybody's socks off stuff-wise, but again, it's that type of guy that's going to come in to get innings, and now all of a sudden you got 5 or 6 guys in the middle of the tier. You go find a top guy at the break when someone falls out of it. You know, the Dodgers, as great as they are, they may fall on their faces and need to go get some more pitching or something, or who knows what they need.
I hope they fall on their face so hard. I hope.
Though, Jerry, they have no pitching right now. If you look at what they have like 2 starters, and Buehler's coming off TJ. So what is that, right? You know?
And the thing about that is and we talk about, we laughed at the Cardinals ads. What starters are really out there that are that good? Like great starters. The league's poor of them. There aren't that many guys in the league that are good starters.
Probably Jordan Montgomery is the guy you want.
Yeah.
Well, I still think there's a couple guys on the Marlins that you could separate, and Luzardo's a guy that I think is an absolute stud lefty. There's like 3 years of control. That's a team that wants to compete next year. If you could put a package together, I really think a team could really do it. And I think the team that does something like that, we didn't talk about it much, but the Reds. And I think the Reds are the best team in the Central. Maybe not on paper yet, but I think the way they project out with the pitching staff that they have and the pitching coach who came from Chicago, is it Johnson? Derek Johnson? I think it was. I think it's the guy that put together the Cubs World Series run and put together those big arms back to back to back and got, guys developed out of it. But you look at like Lodolo and Ashcraft and Iglesias, I think was another one that came from those same guys, those same arms. There's a lot of really good arms there. And they got hit around a little bit, but they're still developing their stuff. And then you got a guy like Jonathan India who's completely dispensable. You realize what that guy could bring in return? You mentioned Bo Bichette possibly trade. You could see an India for Bichette trade somewhere along the line. Now all of a sudden you got more in the Reds than they've had since the Big Red Machine. And that's a lot of talent down there.
Oh yeah, I mean, some of these guys who like really took a step forward for Cincinnati, like Matt McClain, who was, he wasn't even drafted that long ago, shortstop from UCLA. Spencer Steer, who's the bearded monster, outfielder, grinder, can hit tanks.
Oh yeah. Drawing a blank.
Fraley. Jake Fraley. Fraley's good. Indy is good. Stevenson's good. Like adding Adam Candelario, like that's a good move. Like the Reds are scary. Like there was a time where it's like, okay, they're definitely going to make the playoffs, and it's like, oh well, Ellie De La Cruz is an exciting player. Yeah. So you got all these guys, and they're probably just like a pitcher or so away from like dominating too. Like this division is so wide open, and there's so many like just small moves that could be made, and any one of these teams could take it. Like it's crazy. But yeah, the Reds. I got to watch them play in person last summer, and it was fun. They beat the Mets. They beat Senga. Like it was a good game. They hit the ball. That's the biggest thing is they hit the ball, and they played okay defense.
Yeah.
Imagine what some pitching could do.
Yeah, and they got some arms there that they could develop out, and that's what's interesting. And we talk about the Cardinals going back to the Cardinal way and the way they develop these guys. Like you said, it's not necessarily the top prospect all the time, but they always have a guy to fill that gap. And I know the reason is because they're looking ahead. One thing the Cardinals do that frustrates a lot of Cardinals fans is they really value their prospects. But when they know a guy doesn't have it, they get rid of him, and they let other teams figure it out. And that's one of the positives, but they do hold on to guys a little longer than maybe they should. And they fall in love with that grindy type guy. They may get rid of a tools guy over a guy that thinks the right way. Is that the right thing to do? I don't know. You look at some of those guys that had those tools that developed, and you're like, dang, that'd be really nice to have on a roster right now. But you get a consistent attitude coming in, and you get guys that come in, and the moment's not too big for them. There's a ton of Cardinals that come in and produce right away. They may not stick forever, but the game does not get away from them right away. They come up expecting to produce, whether they do or not, on their own ability, but they're not overmatched. And I think that's a big thing. And I think that's part of what makes an organization great. And it's not just the Cardinals that do it, but it's teams like that demand excellence at every level, so that when they come up, they're able to compete. And that's all you ask for.
Yep. Yeah, and we've seen that sporadically with the Cubs, and that's the frustrating part, and that's why it's maddening. Is like they have the money to do these things, and they just don't. Sometimes they go through these, 5-year stretches where it's just like, what do they do? Like, it just, come on, like, this is not competitive. You can see the error of their ways going through it, and it's just, there's a way to do it, there's a way not to do it, and the Cardinals tend to do it more often. And it's, like I said, when they give up on someone, usually it's for a reason.
Well, like for the Cubs, like how many more times are we going to see Patrick Wisdom have like a 10 home run April, and then that is what gets him his next contract? I don't want to see that guy in a Cubs uniform anymore. Nothing against him. Like, he's had his place in certain respects, got a great arm, has some plus power, but that's not your championship playoff third baseman or first baseman. It's just not. Like, they need to make an upgrade. And I don't know what, again, they have the money, they have the fan base, they have the ballpark village, they have the marketing, they have all the chips in place. Chicago's a destination. Like, I would agree with you what you were saying earlier. Like, Cardinal fans are incredible. That is probably Busch Stadium with the Cardinals fans, like, just being a baseball observer. That was one of the best baseball environments I've ever been in, maybe the best. But Cubs fans are maybe not on the same wavelength as far as like their knowledge, but they love their team, they love their city, and they love being there. And that's part of the ambiance. That's part of the electricity you get as a player, like playing in front of a packed house on a Wednesday afternoon, crowds going wild, everyone's cheering, everyone's engaged at the right time. Maybe not all the time like Cardinals fans, but Chicago's a great place to play as well. I mean, so it's just
without a doubt.
It baffles me why guys either wouldn't want to play in Chicago or that they just choose not to.
Certain parts of Chicago, not every place.
Not every part. Yeah, not every part.
Southside does not draw. That is not a good vouch, man.
No, it does not. No.
Well, to your point, that was a Cardinals guy, Wisdom, there, that the Cardinals got rid of.
Yep.
Because, he's got a plus bat and a plus arm, but we don't have any room for him.
Yeah.
To your point, though, with the Cubs and the fans and that, unbelievable atmosphere, but I think that's one of the reasons why the organization hasn't moved on, has accepted some mediocrity. And, we all know what happened with Javi Baez. I bring this up because I made some claims about it a while ago about it, and people thought I was absolutely crazy. But that's an extreme example. But you look at it, Cubs fans love that guy that flat on hustles and gets after, that energy guy. Like, you can't replace these type guys. But in reality, like, you can. Like Ryan Fontenot, Ryan Terrio. Like, these guys are absolute favorites, and they love him. Was it Billy? Was the center fielder that wore his hat kind of crooked, undersized guy? Absolutely ran it down the outfield. Unbelievable. His name was like Billy Driscoll or something like that. He played for the Rays afterwards. Really good outfit. Unbelievable.
Sam Fold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sam Fold.
Yeah.
Well, because Jeremy, he ran into a wall. Didn't you see that?
Hey, Aaron Rowan did too, and he ended up on the Phillies a couple years later.
Yeah.
But it's like, they love those guys, and the fans get after it. They sell the jerseys, and the owner's like, well, I can't get rid of this guy. Yeah. He's a fan favorite, but he's still hitting 210. And he's like an even war player. But God, you love to go to the ballpark. You love to root for him. He's diving all over the place. It's awesome. Yeah. But, like, and I mean, and you see it, Nico Horner's a special athlete. Dansby Swanson's a special athlete. But those guys, you'd think those are second coming of Babe Ruth, though, fans talk about them. Mm-hmm. Those guys aren't single-handedly going to win you a World Series. Together, they're an unbelievable combination. They make any average team – they take a normal team and turn them into a winning team. And they suck everything up the middle. They're exciting to watch. They're going to sell tickets. But so many Cubs fans are happy. Oh, you see how good our team is now. Justin Steele's coming over the place. Well, who's pitching after? Oh, they're just developing guys. Well, are they really? Their plan was always to buy the pitching. They just got lucky on a couple of guys that had a schedule.
Yeah.
Like, and as Cubs fans, and it's not – I'm not ripping on people in general, but it's like sometimes if you're a little more crucial of the club or of your ownership, and not you guys in particular, but they're just happy to be at the ballpark.
Yep.
And the Cardinals joke is, it's the largest party, and it's just all. But sometimes they're just excited. They want to see something exciting happen, and a guy diving for a ball. Yeah. Yep. But a normal shortstop picks that up, ranging, and throws the guy out by 4 steps. He doesn't have to dive and get him out by an eyelash. You know what I mean?
You're not wrong at all with that. Because, like, I've been to Cubs convention before. Who are the guys that we trot out there every time? Mark DeRosa.
I love Mark DeRosa.
I love him, but he's not a cornerstone. Todd Hollandsworth. again, had a couple big homers. Doug Glanville.
Yeah.
Role player. Like, we celebrate, you're right, we celebrate the role players that had a moment, a fleeting moment in time. And it's like, you're right, they need to be more critical. And that was actually post-World Series. I remember there's a lot of talk about, like, do we fall back into complacency? Do we just like, all right, we got that World Series, what do we do now? And that's what's happened. They've just fallen back into whatever. But I will totally give Jerremy the propers on his Javi Baez prediction, because he told me it was right after that MVP. He was in the conversation. He hit 280, hit a lot of homers, and Jeremy's like, sell him. I'm like, you can't sell that guy. Like, you can't, like, even though Jerremy was right, I was like, you can't possibly like pitch that to the fan base in Chicago.
Yeah, he's special.
But you're right. Why not? Why not make the team that much better? And he's just continuing to slide down, and he's swinging at pitches that are 30 feet out of the zone, and it's just a meme now. But, like,
I would talk about Horner then. Like, you got guys coming up. We didn't know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
It was the shortstop for Addison Russell.
Yeah.
We didn't know that was going to happen. Like, that you can't guess on that stuff. But they had so many good guys. And, okay, he's the magic man. He's really good at tagging guys. How many wins is that going to get you a year? Like, you're going to be all over the highlights, but, like, yeah, for Puerto Rico, you're pointing to Molina as you tag a guy out.
Right.
Awesome. He was going to be out if you tagged him or not. Like,
right.
All you got to do is put it down. And again, not rip it on people, but that's just an extreme example of the fan favorites and separating. And another team that has trouble, that's the Twins. And they're going to have to make some choices this year, and that's something else to talk about. But it's like these fan bases just hold so tightly to the guys they got. And you get so much better. And I think Ryan, you said it. Are you going to hold on to good, or are you going to let it go and get something great? And I think the Cubs are in a spot where you've got a really good framework, and it's really exciting, and it's going to be for the next 5 or 6 years. But what can you add to it? And there's some bats out there. There's some arms out there. It's just what are they going to sign?
That mentality, though, is the difference between an organization that's constantly in the playoffs and constantly around winning, and the fleeting moments in time of, like, where Cub fans will talk about the 84 Cubs, the 2003 Cubs, the 98 Cubs. And it's like, you notice the gaps there? There was nothing in between. So it's like, that's why they hold on to those precious moments. But it's like, no. Every year needs, especially with the expanded wild cards, you should be in that every year. If you have the payroll and you have the will to win, you should be in the playoff hunt.
The Dodgers don't talk about their past success. The Yankees, the Red Sox, all these elite teams don't talk about their past success. They just keep, how can I win the next one? We're not going to reminisce. It's time to win again. The only team that seems to win over and over and over again, we have no clue how they do it, is the Rays. They're just an anomaly. I don't know how they do it. They just play a good brand of baseball. They have good front office. They have good scouting. They have great coaching and managing. They're a confusing team, but they're also fun to watch.
If I had to create a reason why the Rays win all the time, I think it's one, they have a very high expectation for winning. And when they show up, they're like, we're just going to find a way to win. And they tell themselves that. And the other thing is, all those players play carefree because they're the Rays. They're not supposed to win. We win, but we're not supposed to. And they do such a good job of capturing that we're going to win because that's what we do, but no one expects us to, so there's no pressure. Right. And they get all these guys that just, they go play. And if you can't, they got another guy that's got a lot of skill, and they're going to see if he can play. And they just constantly keep filling the hopper. And they, honestly, they're one of those teams. Do they recruit positions? Or do they just sign athletes and like, hey, this guy can swing and throw. We'll figure out what he does later.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't even know if he's a pitcher, but he throws the ball hard. Maybe he'll be a starter. Maybe he'll be an opener. Maybe we'll have him play left field, and when we face lefties, he'll pitch one guy, and we'll move him back out to left field. Like, who knows what's going to happen?
Half the guys they have like 9 positions. But actually, so there is a guy, my boss knows him through a connection, Garrett Acton. They just signed, and the reason I knew the name is because he'd been thrown around this summer. But the A's let him go. He just had Tommy John surgery. But this guy throws 96. And it's just like, they just signed him to a 2-year deal. They're going to let him do his rehab and then see what happens. But, like, that's a sneaky move because, you know what, usually guys coming off Tommy John throw harder. And if he could find some sort of command, if you throw in upper 90s and you have Tommy John, you're worth a shot. And for the Rays, he's cheap. He's league minimum. So, like, that's how they keep, you're right, throw another one in the hopper. That should be a T-shirt. But, like, they just kind of recycle it. They recycle other people's garbage almost and just, you know, hey, you can throw? Cool. We'll give you a tryout. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't cost them anything. So
They do a lot. They capture this thing. One of the things they do, and I don't see anywhere else, there's no stat for it. They get guys, pitchers that have a lot of deception. And you can't put your finger on it, but you watch it. He just gets guys out. He's throwing 89, but nobody's catching that fastball. Why? And I can't answer why. But they always seem to have 2 or 3 guys that are that way. And they're that way for 4 or 5 years. And then the league catches on, and they're done. But by that time, the Rays have already got rid of them.
Right. You know why?
Go ahead, Ryan. Sorry.
Because round ball, round bat, hard to hit. That's why. So sometimes you can't explain it.
Well, I mean, like speaking of those kind of guys, I mean, like Diego Castillo was a guy who was nasty, hit the ball well, threw like a 97-mile-an-hour slider, a couple different breaking pitches. Pete Fairbanks hides the ball really well. They have really good relief pitching. I mean, guys like Shane McClanahan and obviously Glasnow pitched well there for a number of years. Jeffrey Springs was probably he was an early Cy Young candidate before he blew his arm out. But yeah, I mean, to me, I think it for sure they give people a chance, but it's also the environment and, like you said, Jeremy, carefree. I think it was Tyler Glasnow a couple years ago that they interviewed, or maybe it was even last year, about just how much fun it is to play baseball there. Like, they don't care that no one's showing up, but the organization kind of trusts them. They let them do their thing. They let them play carefree. And when you're playing, and we know we didn't play baseball at a super, super high level, but when you're playing carefree baseball and you're having fun, that's when you win. That's when you play better. So there's that line between, like, being a freaking Animal House and then being the Yankees. Like, there's a lot of room in between to be carefree and to have fun and to still play the game the right way.
Well, if you're Tampa, you get to go to Yankee Stadium. You get to go to Fenway. You're in the AL East, so you get to play in a really competitive division, and you're probably the best team right now. Well, I would probably say the Yankees have the most talent again, but you're the top dog. And you get to go into their places, which are packed, and great baseball environments, and play fun baseball. So, like, it doesn't really matter that they don't sell at your home ballpark. You're playing everywhere else, too.
Yeah.
So.
And I don't know if they ever will.
They do.
Yeah. I don't know if they ever will pack their stadium. Even if there's this whole concept, and I'm sure we'll talk about it more down the line because it's very interesting, but they just came out with the mock-ups and the renderings of their new, like, ballpark village that they're going to have. And it looks like a lot of fun. There's going to be a lot of nightlife and shopping and restaurants and just things to do and places to stay. And it's like, I don't know if that's really a development opportunity for the Rays, like the team, as much as it is for just like the organization ownership. Like, hey, how can we get more of the market share in South Florida? Like, how can we make this a place for people to be, a destination? Ballpark courses are incredible.
Play games at 4 o'clock. That's what you do.
Right?
Beat the traffic. Get the seniors in bed early.
Yeah. Play more day games.
Yeah, play more.
Hit that early bird special on the way home.
Yep, exactly. Well,
go
Jeremy,
to bed.
Before we get into fan favorites, you said you had a question for us.
No, that was kind of it. Like, what makes the Cubs so special? That was the big thing.
Okay.
There's a lot of confidence.
Nothing right now.
Ryan almost got in a fight with some Brewer fans this summer. He was like, "Why do you guys think your team's fun? This team stinks." And it's like, okay, yeah, that's a rough question to ask to some tailgaters.
No. So what I asked them was, what excites you about this team? That was the question I asked. And they immediately got all defensive. I'm like, they're like, oh, well, what's so special about the Cubs? I'm like, that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm comparing. I'm asking as a baseball fan, what excites you about this team? And they proceeded to tell me that we're more Packer and Buck fans. So, like, you're losers is what you are.
To Jeremy's point with some of these organizations that, like, cherish these guys, I saw so many Joey Weimer jerseys this summer.
Oh my God.
He's a Wisconsin guy, though, isn't he? Is he from Wisconsin?
I don't know if he's from Wisconsin, but he's definitely a prospect. Definitely came up through the system. But, like,
he went to Cincinnati. He was a Bearcat.
Like, come on, the guy hit like 210, and he hit, like, again, the wisdom thing, 10 homers in April. But, like, he did nothing from, like, July through September. He didn't even play in the postseason. It's like, and these people, you're right, Jeremy, they buy the jerseys, so then the Brewers think, like, oh, we're doing good here. We have all this, like, success, and it's like success to them is selling jerseys, not necessarily winning pennants. So.
Hey, one thing I will give Joey Weimer, like, I think, like, just everything he does looks awkward. It looks like he's swinging out of his shoes every time, but, like, when that guy connects, it goes a long way. Barely ever, 1 out of 5 times he connects, it goes a long way. And he's got a cannon. He's he's the definition of a raw, like unpolished athlete playing baseball. He looks like he should be playing like tight end in the NFL.
You know who he is? He's Corey Hart all over again.
Yes.
Corey Hart was better than that.
Hart was better, but
what's weird? Like he's only like 20-some.
Yeah.
He's a young guy, isn't he?
It's the same thing. It's Bill Hall. You know, like
I love Bill Hall. So athletic.
I liked Bill Hall too, but Bill Hall
wins games.
Yeah, for hitting a couple of walk-off homers and anytime I wear, because I have some Brewers shirts, I have a Bill Hall shirt. Anytime I wear that, people are like, yeah, Bill Hall. I'm like, but why? Like, let's really ask
Scott Podsednik.
Yeah, you could. I mean, again, you just go down the
Richie
list
Sexton,
like,
Jeff Jenkins,
yes,
Jeremy Burnett.
Yep.
But you asked me or you didn't ask me. You talked about what's exciting about the Brewers. What I think is exciting, and it's probably not going to be there long, but that up the middle, they're a pretty interesting club up the middle with Contreras, and then they had Urias and
Bryce Terang.
Yep. And I think Urias at shortstop, Terang at second is really interesting. I think Terang got a lot more looks in the outfield, though, didn't he? Than he did in the infield.
No, Terang was like a Gold Glove finalist. Like Terang was
so he wasn't
the Brewers actually in the National League were the highest rated defense. So the teams that made the fewest errors on both sides were the Rangers and the Diamondbacks, which was interesting that they met in the World Series. But the two highest rated defensive teams were the Brewers and the Blue Jays. Just from range, plays made, just overall defensive rating, those were the two best teams.
Kevin Kiermaier is ridiculous. So
yeah, he is. But I mean, Bichette's decent. Vladdy's made a lot of strides with his defense. You have former Platinum Glover Matt Chapman playing third base on that team. I mean, they're not. I mean, it's more than just Kiermaier, but Kiermaier helps for sure. Kiermaier is great.
Well, we're going to give Jeremy another opportunity to rattle off some more names from the memory bank. We've been doing the fan favorite section towards the end of our segments. This week we're going to do catchers because Jeremy used to be a catcher. This fits. We've been kind of going around the diamond. But so basically we'll do one from the past, one from the present. Present's been tough for me though. I feel like again you kind of get stuck in your older players, and then if there's not really a newer guy. So my guy for the present is he's recently retired. I'm gonna bend our own rules a little bit, but we'll do past first. We'll let Jeremy go last. We can think.
No, I'll go last. I go days for our catchers. I know. Soft spot.
But mine, they're really. I was kind of pondering it today a little more. There's a couple names, but I'm gonna kind of hone it into one because there's really only one guy for me growing up that was the guy, and that was Joe Mauer. Just from I mean, I don't know if he won Gold Gloves, but definitely Silver Slugger every year. And just the way he went about it, hitting, because usually catchers tend to not hit as well. It's a grind. But I thought the fact that he switched over to first base just was a testament to how good of a hitter he was. But then also when he retired his last game, did you guys see the video where he went in and caught one pitch? Because he had a lot of head injuries, so he was kind of anxious about going out there again. But he literally geared up, caught the one pitch, and then he's like, nope, that's it. And he walked out to the mound, and then he was done. But that was for me, because I liked him that much, it was kind of an emotional, tear-jerking kind of video, because it was just like, to see him go out like that and to play his entire career for the Twins was cool. Mm-hmm. But to Jeremy's point, maybe they held on to him too long.
Yeah. I mean, he's Mr. Minnesota too, man. I mean, he's Minnesota born and bred, drafted out of high school. I mean, I would just say epitome of a class act, just loyal. It just sucks that they were able to win like a playoff series. Having the boppers with him and Morneau, just I remember being in Cleveland and the two of them just peppering that high left field wall. Yeah. They were just. We went to this series. Field. I think we went to 2 games during that series, and those guys they must have hit 500 or 600 between the two of them.
That was 2006, 2007 in that range, but that was when Justin Morneau won the MVP. They were just and they were like the only two guys that they had. The pitching was Minnesota's pitching was traditionally pretty decent, but they were a 2-man wrecking crew. And this was not facing like a bum Indians team either. Like they were just a really good baseball team.
who just ran into the Yankees. They ran into the Yankees every year.
That's all they did, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing for Joe Mauer, too, was that he was never a power hitter, but that one year he hit like 23 homers. He's like, I can do this. I just don't want to. Like, I want to be a better hitter because I go the other way. I do all this other stuff. I hit a lot of doubles, but like he did have the power. He just didn't really swing for it all the time, like a Javi Baez or a Joey Wiemer.
Moises Gomez, you're gonna be in the conversation.
Yeah,
there he is.
Big time power. Willie Mopena, like
the 45-year-old, 25-year-old. I am 12.
I'm
12. Hey, Miguel's had a contract, so you can do it. It's possible.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, I will. My catcher from the past. I mean, there's so many. Catcher's just a cool position because they're literally involved in every aspect of the game, and I really like when a catcher can do both and when they can hit and when they can call a good game. My guy is Jason Varitek, the captain. I mean, this is just an unbelievable human being. Such a pleasure to get to watch him play for his entire professional career as a Red Sox. Being a first-round draft pick, he actually got drafted by the Mariners, and the Mariners traded him and Derek Lowe for, I think it was Heathcliff Slocum or something like that, and they got brought up in '97, and I mean that kind of started the run of just really successful Red Sox teams with him behind the plate. I mean, this guy's a 2-time World Series winner, Gold Glover, Silver Slugger, 3-time All-Star, brawler. I mean, he just epitome of just toughness and grit and just skill at the same time. Big dude. I mean, catcher university, Georgia Tech. I mean, just a fun guy to watch. Just again, great that he got to break the curse, and he was the guy who caught that final pitch or got that final pitch when Keith Folk PFP and lobbed to first. I mean, just great stuff. Just great guy. Still in the organization. I think he's great. I mean, he's just a great person. And yeah, I'm glad that he's still with the team. I mean, a lot of the guys who played with the Red Sox, they end up migrating back to the team in some facet. Tim Wakefield was on NESN before he passed, and he was beloved by the fans. He did a great job being an analyst and a guy who's just around the game. And yeah, it's just cool. Like Poppy comes around, Petey comes around, Johnny Damon comes around. Like Tech is very much Tech is the same way, and he's there today. So he's my guy.
I get on board.
That's awesome.
Jeremy's got a ton, probably. I'm sure.
The past guys. Well, I'll limit it to just two because you kind of talked about guys that had influence on your life. And first of all, my all-time favorite, if I had to just pick one, would be Yogi Berra. I just the legacy of it, how good he was. Not really a Yankee fan at all, but he played with some of the great Yankees. But in those years where they were still winning playoff games and they weren't the Yankees of old, he was the guy in the middle of the lineup hitting 350, and the guys were trying to pitch around him and they just couldn't. He was talking about being the best bad ball hitter anybody's ever seen, and some of the quotes are just all my all-time favorite. My favorite, to give you just one, it's nobody goes there anymore. It's too crowded. Because that's like the truest thing I've ever heard somebody say that makes no sense. Because there's places I don't want to go because it's too crowded. I don't want to go there because now everybody thinks it's the new thing. It's too hot, so nobody goes there anymore. So that's my favorite quote by him.
There's a relation there too, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. My mom's Paula Berra. Yep. And my great grandpa grew up on the hill in Missouri with the second set of kids from that family. So. But even without that connection, that's why I knew about him when I was so young. But just the way he played the game and the love of the game you hear about. There's a really good Netflix show out, kind of talks about him, and it's a really good piece on baseball. And if you're kind of a borderline baseball fan, watch something like that, you realize why the game can be so romantic at times. And it's just one of those things where I get kind of sappy when it comes to the game of baseball you talk about. And for me, one of the things that come about, and you didn't really ask this, but it's something interesting you talk about Mauer. Well, you watching Yadier Molina retire and Albert Pujols, like those are my guys. Like I love the game. I watch them like every night during the summer, and it's one of those passes of being, kind of moving on in life. You realize like You're no longer that kid looking up to these guys. Now you're that age and they're retiring and you're working a job. It's interesting to see like how different portions of your life were shaped by some of the athletes you watched that passing of time. It's just so cool to see something like that develop. And when you think of baseball being at that framework and that cloth of America, and you look to some of those legends, like Yogi Berra is one of those, and it's awesome to see and look back and see, baseball still 9 inches, 5 ounces, 127 laces, 60 feet between the bases, and 90 feet, 60 feet to the mound. It's the same rules. The fences got a little closer, got a little farther, the mound got a little taller, got a little shorter, but it's the same game, and it's just awesome to have a connection like that. So, with that being said, the one honorable mention, and it's not because he was a manager, but it's Mike Matheny, because I learned to catch by watching him. And I think he was either on the Brewers or the Giants, and he took a pitch to the face, got hit right in the jaw, just spits blood out, and digs back into the plate. He didn't realize where he was. He was ready to hit again. But I'm like, that's the guy I want to be. Like, this guy, and people talk about him being a good catcher, I want to learn how to do it. And I recorded every at-bat I could with him catching to learn how he received, and I turned out to be a decent defensive catcher, and pretty much self-taught by watching that. I just think it's awesome that someone can do that. So those are my two old guys.
Yeah. Well,
that's great.
That's great.
Matheny was tough. He was definitely a giant for sure. Yeah. But yeah, he was a tough son of a gun for sure.
Yeah. And the easy one's Molina, but I think everybody knows that and how great he is. I just want to draw a light on another defensive great.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Yeah. Well, that's such a great point too, Jared, because you're right. We all go to our jobs, and we play this game growing up, but the smallest fraction of people get to continue playing it at a high level, and that's just the reality from the beginning. But you're right, to have at any point in time run or gotten to first base somehow. But you're right, it's 90 feet, it's 60 feet to the mound. It's the same game regardless of the level. The grass is just a little bit nicer, and there's not as many bumps in the infield. But I think that's why this is a lot of fun, because it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go tomorrow, I'm gonna cook, but for an hour a week we can talk about something that we're really passionate about. So that's kind of the connection point, and it doesn't matter what it is. But yeah, that's phenomenal. That's the reason why we're doing it, right? Today again, I've been struggling with the current guys is because I'm not connecting as much, and that's why he just retired. I'm going to do it anyways, but Buster Posey. Anytime you catch multiple perfect games, shutouts, World Series championships, that speaks to your game calling ability, and that he didn't really fully commit to first base the whole time. He was a great hitter, Silver Slugger, all the above. If he didn't win MVP, probably should have been. But his current game, what he retired 2 years ago, 1 year ago? Either way, just the way he played you couldn't deny that he was probably the best catcher, impactful, especially winning over the last 10 years. Especially, I remember I was at a game with Chris Stilo, and we were kind of waiting, and the Brewers, Josh Hader actually was pitching, and it's we'll see what he does. So Buster Posey hits a grand slam in the bottom of the ninth inning to tie it, and then he comes up the next inning. Josh Hader's still in. Buster Posey comes up again and hits the game-winning homer. I'm like, yeah, thank you. And it said all the Brewers fan home said, but it was Josh Hader's a really good pitcher, and you just took him deep twice in 2 innings. That's phenomenal. So I feel like when you have a cool story with a guy too, that's that was a memorable moment for me. But yeah, Buster Posey for sure for today's catcher, even though he's retired.
Do you guys remember when he was a junior in college at Florida State? He hit 4 bombs in a game? It was something ridiculous. That guy was just he was an enigma in college. It's man, who is this guy? Just did everything well too. That's
professional career too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I remember watching a game, and this is a Buster Posey moment talking about it. Watching a game, and you're like, oh man, this catcher's playing out of his mind. And it's I think they're playing Texas. Went to Florida State, right?
Yeah.
I want to say they were playing Texas in a Friday night showdown, on ESPNU at the time. And man, who's this catcher? This guy's really good. He had 2 home runs. And then it comes down, he gets a home run to take the lead at the top of the ninth. And I see him in the dugout taking his shin guards off. And he comes in and closes the game out on the mound.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, this guy right here, this is the guy you want. I want this guy on my team.
Yeah. I mean, that's a top 10 pick, right? I think he was a top 10 pick.
They don't all perform like that. That's for sure. We've seen some top picks and not do so well, so that definitely caged them.
Absolutely. Well, my current guy, there's a lot of nice, exciting young catchers in the game, but the guy who I kind of default to is JT Realmuto. He's fun, man. I mean, he's just tough, but he does a lot of things well. I like when catchers can call a good game and receive the ball well, but can also contribute on offense. And like that guy has been in the heart of every lineup that he's been in offensively since he came into the league. He was the Marlins' best hitter when he was there. I mean, he's been on Philly teams that have been stacked, and he's right there. There was a point in the playoffs, and I think it still was, but he like led their team in RBIs like during the playoffs. Like, and no one was really talking about him because Harper was putting on such a show, and Trey Turner was putting on a show, but like JT was kind of anchoring the whole thing, and a big reason as to why they are where they are. He's a great leader as far as I'm concerned as well, and I think everyone in that clubhouse can probably tell you the same thing. But yeah, I mean, I think one of the more special catchers in the last 10 years for sure, all the way around.
He's probably the best active catcher by far.
100%. I mean, my backup is Rushman because I've seen that guy play at a lot of different levels too. I mean, it was really hard picking between him and Adley, but yeah, JT's just got a little bit more for me at this point. But Adley's coming up, man, and Baltimore's exciting to watch.
Yeah, both deserve to be mentioned, but I got to go Salvador Perez. Ooh. I mean, the guy's done it for so long, winning World Series on that team when there wasn't a whole lot of offense. They played good. They got some key hits, but he was just an absolute anchor. The backbone, the guts, the heart and soul, whatever you want to call it, he was there. And he just found a way to do whatever he had to do. And, you know, Missouri summers are not easy, and those are hot, and he still played, 120-plus games. He's a big guy, too. He didn't lose some of the weight that, So Molina got smaller and was able to kind of do that. And I was the first one to tell you, Molina conserved energy. I don't think Perez ever did. He was always 100% all the time. And it's just, one of those guys you watch, you're like, man, that guy does things the right way. And he did a little bit of everything. And the way that team come up and some of the young pitching they had and the way he'd take it under their wing and he walk out to the mound, you see his big arm around the guy, and he's just talking through the moment. It's just, it was awesome to see. And no matter how big the moment was, he's always smiling and laughing. And just, that's the type of guy you want to see in your ball club. That's fun to watch. Yeah. So, and he's at the end of his career.
I think what's admirable what he's doing is because he's still very productive, but he's kind of gutted through another Royals rebuild, which is not easy to do. It's very slow, and they have a lot of good young pieces, but they're still not quite ready to win. No. But he's having arguably some of his best offensive seasons the last couple of years. He was hurt last year, but 46 homers the year before. Like he's still producing, and I think it's admirable when it's in a not great situation when your team's obviously not going to win.
Well, and he's still catching too. Like he's playing a little bit of first base, but he's catching a lot of games for just he's always been a larger guy. He's 6'3", like 240. Like he's a big fella, like big dude, but like he still gets behind the plate and he's not a liability back there. He can get, I mean, I'd like to see teams maybe try to bunt a little bit more and make him try to field it, but I think he could do it. He could do it.
Waste outs, putting the ball in play? What are you talking about? We don't bunt
But
anymore.
I mean, just like even though they're going through another rebuild, and I mean, right now it seems to be like a bad time to go through a rebuild when that Central's been up for grabs. There really hasn't been a great team in that division for a couple years, like a team that is at least a force. So it kind of sucks watching a player of that caliber on both sides of the ball, and the twilight of his career kind of have to go through another rebuild. But I just think of the leader that he is and the impact that he's making on these younger guys. I mean, they got an absolute freaking stud in Bobby Witt Jr. He is so fun to watch. They have other fun guys who are on their way up, but they get to watch Salvi work every day. They get to be around him in the clubhouse. I live in Michigan now. And hearing what the guys had to say about Miguel Cabrera when he retired, like just hearing those different guys and different stories and different things that he had taught them, like I feel like Salvi's a player very similar to Mickey. I think he will be a Hall of Famer as well. He's just done so much in his career, so much for the game. And I just hope that as long as he sticks around, I hope he's with the Royals. I hope he brings up that next generation. It's very rare when you come across players like that, and he's definitely one of those special guys that it's just, again, pleasure for sure.
Well, to Jeremy's point, I think it's super important. It's important to have that guy that's an anchor for your young pitching staff. And we know the Royals have a lot of young pitching because they have nothing but prospects. So you really need that anchor that's behind the plate and still able to play. And he certainly can do that. So
yeah, absolutely. Great picks, guys. Yeah. Great picks. Love it.
We could probably talk for another 3 hours with Jerremy, but we're just gonna have him on more because that's more fun. Seamless, flawless conversation. But yeah, it's always a good time to have friendly faces. But Jerremy is a baseball mind that we definitely like to pick and that we bounce a lot of things off of. So we will have him on more. But other than that, we're gonna go into a nice little holiday break here, a couple weeks. But we have a lot of guests coming up. We won't even announce anything.
Yeah.
We have people coming on. So it'll be a fun next couple weeks while we hopefully see the Cubs actually sign some people and have some activity, or we're just going to go into the despair that the Cardinals are going to excel. But again, we just want to thank Jerremy again for coming on and having a great conversation with us.
Yeah,
look up Moises Gomez. Let me know what you think.
Moises Gomez.
Yes.
There you go.
Look him up. I'm serious. Look him up.
Yep.
Willie Mo Pena Jr.
Willie Mo Jr. creative player Cardinal are back apparently.
The last time I heard about Willie Mo I think it was him and Manny signed deals somewhere in Asia, and their contract was unlimited sushi. I'm not joking. It was his first release. Like, I get unlimited sushi, and I don't remember if it was Willie Mo or if it was Manny, but one of them, that was their contract. And they showed it in the writing, unlimited sushi from X-Play, and that was his deal.
It was probably Willie Mo, 100%.
So if Moises Gomez signs with the KBO, we should look for that in his contract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, random left fielders, right?
Yeah. Well, as always, boots come in pairs, and thanks for joining us.
Peace, folks.
See you guys.